Okay, I would like to call the first meeting of the West Louisiana Parish Economic Development Board to order. Roll call, Ms. Smith.
Mr. Faraci?
Present.
Mr. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Metz?
Here.
Mr. Milton?
Here.
Ms. Morrison?
Here.
Ms. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. Wheeler?
Here.
Mr. Sims?
Present.
Mr. Wood?
Here.
Okay, the agenda items are as you have listed. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve those items for consideration and action.
So moved.
Okay, it's moved second by Mr. Wheeler.
Second by Mr. Sims.
Any objection? Okay, so ordered. Next on the agenda is kind of my discussion about why we are here, okay, and what we're tasked to do. I hope you knew what you were getting yourself into, but it's going to be quite an endeavor. As all of you know, some time ago, the police jury basically allowed me to basically seat a committee to look at recommendations to the police jury or how we go forward with economic development in the parish. Let me just say this on the outset, that we have a dire concern of where we are economically in West Louisiana. I think it's something that has been talked about. It has something, and not just in the recent history, but it's also something that was discussed 17 to 20 years ago. I was talking with Carter Leak this morning, 17, 20 years ago through Feliciana Visions, about what would happen if we only had one source, one main source contributing to our tax base. What would happen if that starts to decrease, and we always look at diversifying our tax base for that sole purpose? Well, I think we all know that we have gotten into a situation now where we're seeing that start to rear its ugly head by looking at the budgets of the taxing entities that basically depend on the ad valorem and sales tax dollars to fund the provisions and to fund the things that we've come to enjoy in West Louisiana. And I think that that's something that we have to look at. The committee that was seated by me, that came back with the recommendations, which you have attached to here, and basically they made several recommendations to the board, or to the police jury, as to how to proceed forward. In a special meeting, which I called, was it 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. In that meeting, there were a couple of changes that were made to the recommendations of the committee by adding a seat that could be appointed by the Chamber of Commerce and a seat that would be appointed by the Tourist Commission. Okay, now that was not in the recommendations of that committee, but the police jury saw fit that was something that we need to do. We extended the number of members from 7 to 9. In which all of you are seated here today. In that, the goal was to create an atmosphere that we could work together and begin to move this process forward. What we're trying to do here, I'm hoping that we will not bring any predetermined agendas. We will not bring any predetermined goals, because West Louisiana Parish, bless her heart, deserves better. We have to start to pose any questions of saying what is best for West Louisiana Parish. And when I say what is best for West Louisiana Parish, that encompasses the town of St. Francisville, because you can't say what's best for my body and not include my heart. So we have to start looking at that from this standpoint. I'm interested in saying that, not talking about what can't be done, but how can we do it? Because even asking yourself that question in that manner, how can we, changes from a hopeless situation we can't get done to engaging thought, to engaging commitment, to engaging all of the talents that we have seated on this particular board and moving forward with what we need to do. Initially, we have some very important things to look at. First of all, we have to look at the relationship that this body is going to have with the police jury. That's going to have to be some type of agreement between this body, operating agreement, some understanding on how we're going to do business between this body and the police jury, which also you're going to be tasked to do. One of the other things that's very, very important would be how you're going to approach the upcoming sales tax. or the ad valorem tax, I'm sorry, the ad valorem tax for economic development. How are we going to approach, as a group, getting that particular item passed? Because without the passage of that item, then we have no funding for economic development. And that includes the dollars that we receive for tourism or anything like that, so all that goes away. I also would like to say, in caveat to that statement, it is important that we do that because in speaking with LED and Stephen Moray, it is important that we have some skin in the game toward economic development, or the state group is not going to be looking favorably on a community that's not contributing to their own economic development efforts. So it's important from that aspect that we do so. Again, the overall focus is how do we grow our economy in West Louisiana Parish. I do not cater to the doomsday philosophy that say that so as goes the country, so goes every particular community in the nation. I think that you can still have viable pockets of economic development and economic strength even in the midst of a bad economy if we do some things that are right. And I think that West Louisiana has the capability of doing just that because just of who we are, what we are, and if we look at what we can be, or what we could be. So with that, we have you have your task cut out in front of you that's going to be a very aggressive schedule because, again, let me just say this. Another important aspect is how do you go about if you're going to hire an economic development director, a person that's going to run that. I know that is something that has to be discussed and has to be talked about, but you have to look at in light of a person having his job based upon whether or not a tax is passed. You have to think about the responsibilities. I would say even the moral responsibility of offering a job to someone who may not have it if the tax is passed. You know, what could that do to the employment opportunity of someone? So you got a lot of things to think about in moving forward. Again, I think the first thing is there has to be some discussion on how do we work together with the police jury. Initially, that was a contract. It was I think a cooperative endeavor agreement. It was a cooperative endeavor agreement between the police jury and CDF, which how we work. Ms. Smith brought out a very important point when we were discussing it. Sometimes you may not want to receive all the tax dollars into this body because if you receive the tax dollars and you being responsible for it, a lot of other things come along with it that you may not want to be attached to. They may do it like we do the Port Commission, which make recommendations, well, just say how the money is going to be spent and the money stays with the police jury. So those kind of things you have to go over. I'm sure that Ms. Smith will get you copies of the past agreement, but we have to decide how we're going to be working with the police jury, and that's something that has to be done. Then after that particular point, moving forward with current economic development efforts, how do we still sustain those things, and looking at what we do for the future as far as the economic development director, and then how do we pass the tax. So with that, I'm sure later on I will probably have more things to come in and share. We have, I just saw Adam Knapp, who's president of the Baton Rouge Chamber of Commerce, came in, and also, you know, Rachel is with BRAC, and she works with us with economic development. I'm here, and I must say I've done a wonderful job for her. So one more thing I say, and I don't want to philosophize too much, and just kind of I'm more of a lot of times I've become a coach, and realizing that we have a team here that I know that we can win. Everybody here brings something important to the table. I think that we have vast knowledge sitting here. I look at who's represented. I look at, I know all of you, really. I think Norm is one that probably, you know, just met most recently and got to know him a bit. But I think that we all bring something to the table that we can get an incredible amount done. It's amazing what can be accomplished and nobody cares who gets the credit. And no one is interested in personal credit and personal gain. H.H. Dow said this, and it was a plaque when I was contracting with Dow Chemical. He said that I can find 100 people who can tell me why an idea won't work. So what I'm looking for is a few who will make it work. So I think that's how we have to approach it. We are not going to all agree on everything. We not, you know, sometimes we may not even like each other very much. But that's beyond this. Because I played with Randy's brother on the football team, and I didn't like him very much. Not teasing, man. But sometimes you just bone up with your teammates and you get the job done. And I think that's what we are called to do. In our parish, we know it's very easy to just become silos and to kind of morph into our own little individual ideology and thinking. I'm asking everyone here to take off every hat of what you may be representing and put on a hat of that I'm looking at what's best for West Louisiana. And let's take a broader approach, let's take a broader view. And I think if we start with that, we all can drill down to what's important to making her healthy. So with that, again, I thank you for your commitment and your time and your willingness to take on this endeavor. And any way that I can be of any assistance, please, I think you all have my numbers. You can call me anytime. I'll be more than happy to do so. So with that, I'll answer any questions. If not, we can move on to the next agenda item. No questions? Okay. So what we're going to do is have an opportunity for everybody to introduce themselves and give a brief, a biography of who they are, their background, because everybody may not know as much about another person as they would like to. So why don't we start? Want to start with you, Randy?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
tell you.
Go ahead.
I wrote a little bit of stuff down, I wouldn't forgive it. I'm Randy Metz, 46 years old, born and raised here in West Louisiana Parish. I attended school here. I graduated in 1982 from West Louisiana High School. I'm married for 16 years to Melissa Kennedy. I have 2 children. Aaron is 20 years old. I have a 15-year-old daughter, Mallory, who's currently in high school. I started working in a family business, logging and farming. That's what we did. We logged all over the parish. I'm very versed with the parish. In the late, probably the mid-'80s, I left logging and went to work for Georgia Pacific in the forestry department. I worked there for several years in the forestry department, and basically our job was overseeing timberland owned by Georgia Pacific. We managed timberland and we bought timber for the paper mill in Port Hudson. In '89, I left there and I went to work for the St. Francisville Police Department. I stayed there approximately 9 years to the rank of Assistant Chief. In 1997, I went to work for the Sheriff's Office and have been here since then. I was working my way up through the ranks, and in 2004 was promoted to Chief Criminal Deputy. And basically what I do is I oversee 7 or 8 division commanders that on the criminal side of the Sheriff's Office we have a Chief Civil Deputy, but I oversee the operations of and oversee the supervision of the commanders on the criminal side of it, which is about 8 divisions. I work with the Sheriff's Office with budgets, division budgets, and the overall Sheriff's Office budget, and also work with maintaining and updating our policies and procedures. That's about it. I have, like I said, I graduated from LSU Law Enforcement Academy and also the Attorney General's Command College.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Paul?
Thank you. I'm Norman Faraci. I'm a native of Baton Rouge, but I've owned property in West Louisiana Parish since the late 1970s. Lake Rosemount is built a place there in the late 70s, sold it. Then later, about 5 years later, built a place on Marydale Road, sort of a second home, loved it. Have a piece of property still at Lake Rosemount, but I live in St. Francisville. I live in the town. I live on Ferdinand Street. My wife and I moved up here almost 2 years ago. So I'm the new guy in town, I guess, but I'm the oldest guy probably at the table. But a little bit about me. I'm a graduate of LSU. I graduated in journalism a long time ago. I worked, Adam, for the Baton Rouge Chamber of Commerce. I think I told you that a while back. A long time ago. I was the public information director there. After that, I started my own business in publishing and public relations. And we did a lot of magazines, public relations, and advertising for a variety of clients. And through the years, that evolved into an association management business. What that means is my office, my small staff, was the headquarters for a number of nonprofit organizations. We were the state office. I was the executive director of a number of groups. The common denominator, there were plumbers, lawyers, doctors, arts, all sorts of things. The common denominator is that they needed management, leadership, continuity, and that's the type of company that we had. That also included government relations, basically meaning state government relations, and especially the Louisiana legislature. I'm a registered lobbyist, have been for a long time. Over the year, through the recent years, I've trimmed back my business, but I'm not retired. That's a misnomer. I've cut it back. I'm not semi-retired. I'm still working full time. I manage the Louisiana Beverage Association. That's the soft drink manufacturers, the Coke and Pepsi bottlers in the state. I watch the legislature for them, their government relations. My peers, the lobbyists, asked me to manage their association. We have an association. I've managed that association for a long time, which means we have a small office in the Capitol during the legislative session, and I have a staff person in there. It's a very small room, but it's a hangout where they can get off their feet and so forth. So I continue to be active in lobbying and government relations. I'm married, have 3 children and 8 grandchildren, and very pleased to be a full-time resident of West Feliciana Parish. I hope I can contribute some meaningful things back to the parish.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm Laurie Walsh. I'm not going to tell y'all how old I am. But from the gray hair, you know. Moved to the parish in 1990 and bought the St. Francisville Inn with my husband and 3 kids. Grew up in the hotel industry, tourism industry in New Orleans. Went to work for the mayor doing the Main Street program in 2001. And presently I'm also the interim director for the West Feliciana Parish Tourist Commission. So most of y'all know me, so I'll keep my biography short and sweet.
Okay. Thank you.
Hollis Milton. I'm 21.
Made a birthday.
There you go. That's right.
He's legal.
That's right.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I'm really 38 and have 2 children, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and happily married. I've been married for 16 years. Superintendent, I started last year. June 16th was my first date last year. I was very fortunate at the last board meeting that I was approved to a new 4-year contract. So I hope to continue to work to improve our school system and be competitive and prepare our students for this century. And so I'm excited about that. About me, I graduated from Southeastern, was planning on going back and teach college level history because I was a big history buff, and got married and needed to make some money, so I went to work in a chicken plant. And I was a production supervisor in chicken plant, and I learned more than probably in a month working in a chicken plant than I learned in all my years of schooling about running a cost and the pressures of production. It was a very good experience for me, and I enjoyed it. But I wanted to go back. I had a calling. I wanted to go back into teaching, and finally I did so. And I taught in New Orleans. I taught at one of the most difficult schools in New Orleans at that time, and really enjoyed it. Had a blast doing it. But I got an opportunity to teach in Baton Rouge with a principal who was very innovative, and I felt like this was going to be a long-term opportunity. So I took that and stayed with her for a while, and got my master's from LSU. Went back into administration, and I was just very fortunate. A lot of opportunities. I moved very quickly through administration from a dean of students position at a high-performing school to an assistant principal at a traditional school in Baton Rouge to a reconstituted school that was in trouble in Baton Rouge, and then finally to a principal, and then finally here to West Feliciana. So I really had a lot of great experiences and enjoyed it. I hope that I can bring whatever I can to the table of being a part of it. The third largest employer of the parish, part of a really high-performing school system that brings a lot of pride and to West Feliciana. And I have skin in the game. My little boys at Baines Lower. Plan on being here, looking at buying a home at this point, and just hope that I can help the parish any way I can. So.
Thank you. Mr. Harvey?
My name is Melvin Harvey. I'm a native here of West Feliciana Parish. I went to school up at WCCA under Mr. Lloyd Lindsay. Finished there in '91. Ventured up to Louisiana Tech, and finest school in the state, by the way. And had a good time up there. That's right. Graduated from there in 1995, and through college worked at the paper mill here in town at James River at the time, and worked there holidays, of course, and through the summer to pay my way through school. Became involved in banking shortly after graduation in '95. I've been in banking about 16 years. I'm currently employed with the Bank of St. Francisville here in town, where I'm a loan officer. I'm married to Shelley Bazeron of Zachary. We have one child, Charlotte Elizabeth. She's 8. She attends West Feliciana. I'm very happy to live here. For a short period of time, I lived in Clinton when I worked at another bank out of the parish, but glad to be back here in St. Francisville. I hope that I'm honored to serve representing the hospital on this board with each one of you, and I feel as though we have an excellent board here. I mean, truly, we represent every aspect of this parish, and I think we can do really good things. And like what Mr. Ken said, it's very important that we are very positive through this process, because in 2012 there will be a re-election. There'll be an election to renew this, and it's just so important that we renew this millage. And in doing that, I know each of y'all will agree, it needs to be renewed, and we need to continue to increase our sales tax base here, add new businesses, new developments, new manufacturing, upgrades to our paper mill here, even at River Bend. We have, all of us have seen the benefits of what ad valorem taxes can do here in the parish, from our sheriff's office, hospital, fire district. I mean, truly, we have a lot to be proud of, and I know each one of us want to not only maintain what we have, but to grow our agencies and our individual areas. But I look forward to serving on the board, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Sheila, care to tell us how we are?
Probably right after Mr. Frost.
Okay. All right.
Well, I might be.
Yeah, that's right. All right, yeah.
I'm Jeff Wheeler. I've been a resident of West Feliciana Parish for about 15 years now. My wife and I, my 2 sons, live at the Bluffs. I got 2 boys that grew up and went through our school system here and have gone on to college to be very successful, and we're very proud of what our school system has done for our boys here. We love the community. I've been in business in West Feliciana. The very first custom home that I built was in West Feliciana Parish. Probably the last one I built will be in West Feliciana Parish. But I've been doing that for almost 23 years. It's all I've ever done is build houses, so it's been my life. I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce here in St. Francisville. Been a member for a long time, but year before last, I was appointed to the board, or elected to the board, and I've been proud to serve for our chamber. Had a lot of experience in the housing industry. It's how I kind of got involved in public affairs here in town, and just, you know, it's what we do. It's my livelihood. It's what we specialize in. We have a couple of other businesses, property management business, retail business, development business, but building houses is our passion. So we look forward to serving on the board and giving what we can to it.
Thank you. Mr. Woods?
I'm James Wood. I'm the parish fire chief representing the fire district, obviously. I just recently made 30. I have
Oh, man.
I'm originally from a small town in Texas, and about 2001 I started working up here, and my dad was a veterinarian for 42 years, and we traveled around a little bit, and I lived in a few different towns. And when I came to West Feliciana, it just really reminded me where I grew up and where I was home. So I started really looking up here to buy a property. 9/11 hit, and I got recalled to active duty, and served off and on for 3 years basically on active duty, and they kind of messed up my plan or whatever, if you want to say. But eventually I did get off active duty, and in 2003 we purchased some property up here. My wife and I, we had just recently been married, so we've been married about over 8 years now. We do have 2 kids. We have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they're both tremendous trying opportunity sometimes. They're great. Actually, they go to First Steps here in town, St. Francisville, and they do a great job over there. And we look very forward to my son starting school at Baines there in August. My wife's already tearing up and crying, so it's great. As far as what I've done, I started out with the city of Baton Rouge as a firefighter, and I worked my way up to training officer. As I said, I'm in the Coast Guard. I'm an E8 in the Coast Guard. And the senior enlisted reserve advisor, so I'm used to going in and advising captains and admirals and things of that nature on enlisted personnel issues. And kind of what I tell people is I'm similar to kind of a union rep or whatever, bringing it over to what the civilian world would be to kind of explain what the workers' issues are. And I'm supposed to be a technical expert in the area that I'm in. I serve on the state of Louisiana's EMS Certification Commission. We govern EMS EMTs in the state and that sort of thing. And I guess you say, when I came up here, I really loved what I saw in West Feliciana, and I've been a coach over the years. And actually, one of the things was I used to coach at LSU, and our big rival in powerlifting, I coached women's powerlifting, which my wife was a powerlifter. And our big rival was Louisiana Tech, so I'd say, but I do have a lot of friends at Tech, so I'll that. So I won't hold it against you. But it was great to come up here, and a little over a year and a half ago, I got the opportunity to take the fire chief jobs up here, and I've never looked back. I had a lot of people tell me, "Oh, you're going up there, you're stepping down, you have the potential," and I've never looked back. I thought this was great, and I do not plan to go anywhere. My wife works here in the parish at River Bend, and we hope that we stay here and we don't go anywhere. And we're happy to be here, happy to be on here, hopefully to contribute whatever I can contribute. So.
Great.
All right.
Sam?
Thank you. I'm Ambrose Sims, probably the least controversial person on this panel. I'm a native of Shreveport, Louisiana, graduate of Louisiana State University in 1973. Married to the former Joyce Davis, whose family had deep roots in this parish, well over 100 years. I've been a native of this parish for 6 years myself. Prior to coming to West Feliciana Parish, I was involved in the private sector, where I've had the opportunity to work in management and executive managed positions, and in the oil and gas industry, starting with City Service Company, going on to Occidental Petroleum, Amoco Production Company, and got out of BP before they did the oil spill there. And so didn't have anything to do that, but had several years with BP, and then PricewaterhouseCoopers, and more recently IBM Business Consulting Services. I left the private sector, came and worked, and it started out as a parish manager in West Feliciana Parish, and just recently was terminated in May of this year. I have gone back to work on a business that I've been involved in for over 3 years. I'm the CEO of Stanchion Insurance Corporation, a Delaware-based company whose primary function is to provide financial services for startup expansion companies, and have been doing that for some time. I look forward to working on this committee, and that I think that I've got an intricate knowledge about what goes on in West Feliciana Parish, and what the needs are, and also where we are financially, and how we're having a tax base that's eroding very rapidly, and that we need to stop this downward spiral, and it should be for the betterment of not only West Feliciana Parish, but for St. Francisville as well, which should be good for West Feliciana Parish, should be good for St. Francisville. And I think this committee's biggest challenge is going to be to determine how do we make an equitable distribution of economic development that traverses the entire parish, and also includes St. Francisville. I think we'll have to look at what makes sense in St. Francisville and what makes sense in West Feliciana Parish. And I think this is probably one of the biggest goals we have. And I think we could we could work together and achieve that harmonious relationship, which is sorely needed in this parish if it's going to move forward. I look forward to working with each other.
Thank you. Ms. Morrison.
I'm Andrea Morrison. My maiden name is White. I grew up here in St. Francisville, born and raised here in St. Francisville. My family roots are here in St. Francisville. I graduated from West Feliciana High School in 1992, fourth in my class. I have 2 children. I have a daughter who will be a senior this year, and she is at the top of her class with a 4.2 GPA. Have a son who's a junior. He will be a junior, and he's in the gifted program at the school, and should be at the top of his class, but you know.
He's friends with my son, so we'll talk
yeah, yeah. I am a graduate of LSU. I have a degree in accounting. I'm also a graduate of Southern University Law Center. I'm a practicing attorney. Currently, I am working with the Louisiana Workforce Commission as an administrative law judge, and I am delighted to serve on this committee.
Thank you. Well, good. Well, again, I want to thank everyone for their time and their commitment to serve. Just one thing I want to say real quickly. We have to be willing to discuss the tough things. I think that we're going to have to really be willing to discuss the tough things. I mean, we have to talk about our tax issues. We have to be able to take a real world look at what actually, not what we would like to say it is or what we would like for it to be, but be able to evaluate it from a very practical standpoint and to know, if anything I want to task this group to do, you should know. I mean, I think that you should be the authority on what is the sales tax base, where is it coming from, where is it diminishing, what brings in, what factors can improve that sales tax, our Avalon tax, where are we getting most of it from, how's it looking, what are some of the causes. I mean, we have a lot of speculation. For instance, I mean, I could ask anybody how to solve the problem, and probably we could most of us could come up with ideas on how to solve the problem. But the thing is that we have to not only be able to convince ourselves, but this group will have to have the ability to have the documentation and knowledge, okay, to convince the public that you've done your job, to convince the jury that you have done your job. I mean, we talk about the issue with housing and how that affects what's happening in the parish. Some say we don't need housing. Some say we have people leaving because we don't have housing. So the thing is that we need to stop having the discussion on whether or not which one is true. This group needs to determine which one is true. Okay, so we can have a process of moving forward so that we can answer the questions and issues. And that's why I think that we have everything at the table here that will bring the knowledge base. But we have to be willing to discuss the tough issues. When we're discussing the tough issues, hopefully we don't take them personally. No one wants to rain on anyone else's parade or step on anyone else's toes. If it happens, I think that I will say right now from the beginning, we apologize if we step on any toes and make anyone, feel whatever. But we have, just like sometimes my wife and I have those real deep discussions. Okay. All right. So yeah. I'm sure everybody married understands that.
It's a discussion.
You just listen. Yeah. Well, most of the time I do. I learned that after 29 years of marriage, just listen and don't talk about it more. But the thing is that no matter what those discussions are and how difficult some of them get or how cantankerous some of them may be, because she knows that I'm right, I just have to acquiesce to her most of the time. But you got to come. It's not time to divorce. It's not time to give up. It's not time to say I'm just sick of dealing with her and that kind of thing, because I fortunately recently celebrated 30 years. I think that we have to commit to each other for the purpose of committing to the task and goal. When the goal and the task become more important than individuals, that's when there's success. And I feel confident that we can do that, okay? So with that, we go on to our next agenda item, which will be election of officers. What we will do is there will be this election of, let me just ask this question first. Do we feel comfortable with going on with the election of officers today? Because I know that I think everybody knows everybody pretty well. Do we feel we need to move forward with the election of officers at this meeting?
I think we should.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Well, So what we'll do is the officers will be elected. First will be the chairperson. After the chairperson elected, they will continue the election of officers and nomination process. I will then vacate the seat and let that particular person take their position. So we now have the floor is open for nominations for chair of the Economic Development Board.
I'd like to recommend Jeff Wheeler to serve as chairman of the West Feliciana Economic Development Board.
I'd like to nominate James Wood to serve as chairman of the Economic Development Board.
Okay. So Jeff Wheeler and James Woods. Any other nominations for chairperson? Okay, so nomination of chairperson is now closed. We will now have a vote. So first was Jeff Wheeler as chair. Ms. Sheila will call roll, and you will affirm yes or no.
Okay, Mr. Faraci,
Yes.
Mr. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Metz,
No.
Mr. Milton,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
No.
Ms. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Wheeler,
Yes.
Mr. Sims,
No.
Mr. Wood.
No.
That's 5 of the 9. 5 of the 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Said yes.
Okay. So with the majority vote, Mr. Wheeler, the chair.
Thank you.
Sir, you the gavel.
Thank you guys very much for your confidence. Okay, we'd now like to take nominations for the vice chairman's position. Does anyone have a nomination for the vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Melvin Harvey for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate James Wood for vice chair.
Are there any other nominations? If not, then we can move forward with a roll call on Mr. Melvin Harvey first.
Mr. Faraci,
Yes.
Mr. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Metz,
No.
Mr. Milton,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
No.
Ms. Walsh,
Yes.
Mr. Wheeler,
Yes.
Mr. Sims,
No.
Mr. Woods.
No.
5 to 4, 5 of 9 again. So,
So Melvin Harvey, 5 of 9, he will be our vice chair. Moving on to the secretary's position, do we have any nominations for secretary?
I'd like to nominate Miss Lori Walsh.
Do you have any other nominations for secretary's position? All right, we'll call for, well.
by acclamation, I guess.
Acclamation. Okay. Ms. Lori Walsh,
Okay.
secretary? Okay. The next item on the agenda is to discuss our meeting schedule. Maybe we could talk about when some of our other obligations are, the fire board meeting, and come up with a date that would be acceptable by all of us. I mean, we know that we have our police jury meetings on the second Tuesday, is that correct?
Yes. Is the town still meeting on
They meet on the same.
the second?
Second
I
and
think the
fourth.
school board does too.
School board also?
James, when do y'all meet?
The fire board's meeting on the second Monday of the month.
And then the, planning and zoning has this meeting room on the, first Tuesday.
First Tuesday.
And the other, what are they, the charter
Homeroom
commission
charter
has the
has
first and
the
third Monday.
First and third, or second and fourth?
Ms. Hilly, can you, is it
Second
first and
and
third?
fourth.
The home rule charter, they meet the first and third?
First and third Monday.
First and third.
I guess.
With the deviation of this week, they'll meet this coming Monday because of the 4th.
Yeah, the first Monday is home rule charter, the second Monday is fire board, third Monday is home rule charter.
And planning and zoning meets.
Is the first Tuesday.
First Tuesday.
So you've got the first Monday and Tuesday taken. You got the second Monday and Tuesday taken. Third Monday is taken. Correct? Home rule charter?
Home rule charter, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mel, when does the hospital meet, y'all?
The hospital will meet on third, on the
Third Thursday.
third Thursday.
Nurse is the third
Which is the
Tuesday,
18th.
and I'm sorry, did you say second? I just shook my head, but it's the third Tuesday is the school board.
All right, so then
It's
you
the
have,
16th.
on the third, you have the Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday taken. So the week, the fourth week of the month.
Not the second Thursday.
Well, there's nothing on the second Thursday that I'm aware of that I can.
Is there anything on the second Thursday that would,
Looking at the afternoon.
Not that I can
yeah,
tell.
yeah.
Second
Is the
Thursday.
afternoon better?
Yeah.
I mean, do y'all meet anything Thursday?
Once a month?
Will we need to meet more than once a month initially?
Y'all can always change it. I mean, it's not written in stone.
I guess since we don't know anything yet, it's hard to answer that
Okay. I'll
honestly.
just say initially,
But I think that's a good starting point for sure.
What, I'm sorry, I missed that.
The second Thursday.
The second Thursday of each month.
so y'all want to meet again next week on the 14th?
Would we want to skip that? Or would we want to go ahead and meet that?
Let's skip, as a suggestion. I don't know the pleasure of
Well,
anyone else.
Do I have a motion to the second Thursday of each month as our general meeting date?
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second it.
Go ahead and end 5 o'clock at that.
About
end.
5 o'clock. Is that late enough or early enough for everyone? Does that work okay? Okay, we'll say 5 o'clock. Any objection? So moved.
So that
So
date will take
August
effect in
11th.
August.
It's the second Thursday, correct?
Now, will we have that first meeting next week, or will we have that take effect in August, like she's asking?
I'm ready to
Do
get
we have-
started.
Ready to go on? I am too, personally, so I think we'll make that effective on the 14th.
Okay.
I will be out of town on the 14th, so I won't be
Yeah.
available.
Yeah, I have a problem with that date too. It doesn't preclude anything, of course, but if it's, well,
I think that we have some things that we probably can get.
okay,
Okay.
good. I'll
So
try
we'll
to
have
make
that
it.
first one on.
July 14th. 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The next item on the agenda, we have Mr. Adam Knapp, the CEO with the Baton Rouge Chamber, who's got a presentation for the board. Is that correct, Mr. Knapp?
It is.
Thank you.
And thank you for the, is that all right if I stand here? I guess I might pick up on the mic that way. I'll say my name again. I'm Adam Knapp. I'm the CEO of the Baton Rouge Area Chamber. For those of you who I haven't met, it's great to meet all of you, and just I loved listening to all of your biographies because I think you've got a great diverse crowd of backgrounds, and I think that's critical to what you're about to undertake. We've just at BRAC been through 2 or 3 different strategic planning processes for different things we were asked to help lead, and know firsthand from watching those over the last 2 or 3 months how difficult the challenge is put on you to do this and time consuming it is on your personal lives. And so thank you for what you're doing for your community. It's tough to do. I first visited St. Francisville in West Feliciana, I think when I was in 7th grade, when my parents and my grandmother took me on a trip to go see the plantations and completely freaked me out at staying an overnight at the Myrtles. And it has scarred me ever since. So I love the parish for this, the memories it gave me early on. So much so that when my wife and I got engaged, we actually chose to get married here. We got married at Rosedown and had our outside and had our wedding reception at the Bluffs, and made everybody that came in for the wedding stay in the parish, and tried to book up including at the St. Francisville Inn, had everybody sort of book up, I think, every room, and it happened to be the Audubon pilgrimage weekend, which was really, so we booked like a year in advance, and I think I made everybody angry because we got all these calls like, are you sure you want these rooms? People want them. We're really going to use them. So we truly loved it, and everybody loved their experience here, and it really is something we have been fond of as a memory. But it's also something that professionally it has come to be an important priority for us to be a partner with you in a direct sense, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. In some of the temporary work we've been put in place for. I wanted to share a few thoughts, and I hope with your permission I can take just a few minutes, hopefully not too long, to help perhaps frame the work that you're going to be trying to work through and your thinking. Y'all have already been through as a parish some of the master planning work to think about your future growth and your development options, and I think the work that y'all have done has been well led. Has been competent. You've had some good sort of parish partners and external partners that I think help create a competent plan. Some of the things that I think haven't perhaps been done to the depth that need to be done, and y'all are pretty much charged with, is to think about what that means from an economic development standpoint, how you translate some of the thoughts about what you do into an actual economic development strategy. And so the master plan for the parish, while it talks at a high level about it, I think you want to drill into, and I'll talk a little bit about that. The Baton Rouge Area Chamber follows a vision of economic development that I feel like is a good place to start, and it sort of introduces the narrative of perhaps the rest of the comments I'd make. Our view is that as a regional organization, we are charged with leading economic development for the 9-parish area, and the idea is that we want to make sure that the businesses that are in the 9-parish area that serve all of the citizens of the region are seeing net new wealth coming into the entire region's economy. And the vision is that, and especially modeled off of what we've seen around the country, that activity that we do as a regional organization really benefits all parishes, regardless of where our work brings us and takes us to, whether for a project, for policy, for strategy, that the good of the region is the good of the region as a whole, and our growth is very much tied together. By the Fed's analysis, we're considered a metropolitan statistical area, which is a funny way of saying that it's an economy as a whole, regardless of our parish boundaries. It is all an interconnected activity of our economy. And our 9 parishes, just as a starting point, in case you don't think about this as much as we do, starting in West Feliciana, and if you went clockwise, East Feliciana, St. Helena, Livingston, Ascension, Iberville, West Baton Rouge, Point Capee, and in the urban center in East Baton Rouge Parish. So there's 9 parishes as a whole. We're at 802,000 people as of the new census, and we've seen growth in almost every parish with the exception of East Feliciana. All of the, I think East Feliciana or St. Helena. Shouldn't say that without knowing for sure. But it was one parish that didn't see growth. The rest saw some amount of growth in that 10-year period. So that's an overview of our metro area. Our view is that when that activity is brought in, that net new wealth is brought in, that our businesses, especially our retail businesses and services sector, are going to see an increased amount of activity from the amount of work that we've done. We had 65 projects, for example, that our business development team worked throughout the 9-parish area that announced investments in the last 5 years. Over 6,700 jobs announced through those projects. About $2.4 billion in capital investment from those projects across all 9 parishes. About $270 million in new annual payroll in the metro area. And so as goods or services are being traded, that net new wealth is spreading across the entire metro area. And that's been our philosophy, is that we want to bring new dollars into the economy, and we want to do as much as we can to focus on that activity that is going to bring those net new dollars into the metro area. As an organization, BRAC is, as I said, organized to serve the 9 parishes as a regional organization. We partner with local officials, local economic development teams in every parish. Our role is to be the honest broker between every parish, to give an equal shot at every project that is looked at in the region, that every parish has a chance to look at that project, to bid for it, to compete for it, and that the company chooses what makes the most sense for their business's needs. And so that takes our sort of the political nature of economic development hopefully out of the process, where it's more directly driven by the business's interest about where they can do a project that most suits their needs and the infrastructure matches their needs. And so that's the work that we do and how we're set up. We have 4 departments. business development, which Rachel Pearson is a part of our business development team, product development, which is the public policy that is needed to improve the competitiveness of the metro area. And so we engage actively at the legislature. We engage actively in public policy research on issues like transportation, education, how else you know this, higher education policy, workforce policy, trying to make our region more competitive. Government affairs, which I'll touch on in some of the work that we've done in West Feliciana, and marketing and communications as part of the branding of our region as we do our work nationally and increasingly internationally. We have 4 new strategies for the next 5 years. We just launched a new 5-year strategic plan, which I'm happy to talk about in greater depth if you're curious. 3 new initiatives. First is to try to focus more aggressively on an international strategy. Most of the growth that's happening globally is happening in emerging markets, and we are seeing more foreign direct investment opportunities from those markets inbound to the U.S. We have been strategically only for the last 5 years looking at projects that might come from domestic sources. So as we do national marketing, we want to expand that to look for investment opportunities from companies, foreign companies as well as U.S. companies. Second is to focus more aggressively on entrepreneurial growth. We know that there are 3 legs to the stool of job creation everywhere you look, whether it's at a parish level, a community level, the regional level, the state level. Those 3 legs, as we view them, are retention and expansion of existing economic driver firms, attraction of new firms into a market, and what I'd call organic growth rather than acquired growth, the entrepreneurial growth of new firms that are producing products and services that are sold outside of the parish or outside of the region, or if you're in the state level, outside of the state. And then the third new program is that we heard loud and clear from a lot of the companies we've been going after, or a lot of the companies we've been trying to help grow, that they struggle to find the talent that it takes to compete. And if they want to know that if they're going to choose a location in the Baton Rouge area, anywhere in the Baton Rouge area, that they can find the talent that it takes, especially the professional managerial talent. We know that there's a critical need for the skilled workforce that it takes to do the work that we do, and we put a lot of that on the education system at the K-12 level and the community college level to deliver those needs, or in specific programs like Fast Start of the state. What we haven't done as a region, and nor have any regions, to be honest, really competed in this way, is to try to help companies think about how to find the professional talent it takes to grow their companies here versus in other markets. And we compete aggressively with places with much larger pools of executive talent, and that's a critical thing that we're going to be building in our team over the course of the next 5 years. Let me differentiate for a moment the difference between BRAC as a regional organization and what you're trying to think about at a parish level. At a parish level, you're challenged with a different set of things that you need to be focused on, that we look to you at a parish level from a regional standpoint to the parish level to make sure that you're aggressively taking on, making sure that you have the infrastructure to compete, both the real sense of infrastructure from a roads and bridges kind of standpoint, but also from an industrial standpoint, if that's the direction you want to choose, or an entrepreneurial standpoint, or from a technology standpoint, that you're thinking about what you have to put in place to make sure that companies that you are interested in going after or growing here have the right infrastructure to compete. That can take the form of setting aside an industrial park, or it can take the form of creating business incubators and creating services to accelerate those companies. But how you choose to set those things and create those things is a strategy that your parish economic development leadership must own. Second is project management. So at the parish level, we really look to our parish partners. Once a bird is in hand, interested in doing something in the Baton Rouge area, for example, or there's an expansion opportunity from an existing economic driver firm in your parish, you want to make sure that you have the talent and the team that can go work with them to work through the challenges and the needs of deciding where to do it, how to do it, what to do. That's really what the leadership at the local level takes on quite a bit, and that is a 24/7 challenge, and it really does not stop, as Rachel can attest. Business retention and expansion, the direct work of visiting your existing businesses to make sure that they are competitive, if they have opportunities for growth, that they have the resources that they need to be able to grow those things that they can compete in. And that is something that is an active part of a parish level economic development organization in most places. And then finally, I'd say the marketing of what you want to try to do outside of the parish to make sure that if you're looking for attraction opportunities, that you are doing the marketing it takes to meet those decision makers who can bring those things to bear, or the marketing of the assets that you have to make sure that if you're trying to get entrepreneurs into an incubator, for example, that you're doing the outreach to create that opportunity. Those are really some of the things that I think at a parish level you want to try to grapple with, and then some of the choices you have to make about it. We, as BRAC, were engaged in June of 2010 on a temporary role to help with economic development services to make sure that there was not a lapse as the foundation was dissolved and the leadership there were asked to step down. We were keenly interested to make sure that no projects that could happen in the parish, and perhaps only could happen in the parish, as a win for our region, they didn't get dropped. So we wanted to make sure that that was something that could happen, and the parish leadership asked us to step in and play that role. We've done so basically in short-term agreements, and as they've been needed, they've been expanded, or extended, I should say, and we are under one of those extensions. It is deeply my interest and our organization's interest to see that it is a parish-level responsibility. We would hope that you do take that task to create a permanent role again, and at the right time. For us, sooner the better, to be honest. I think it's a great time to think about, as you are doing your work, the idea and the role of an economic development leader for your parish. And so we at the appropriate time, without any lapse of services, want to make sure that we do hand that back off to you as parish leaders and nurture that person or that team to do what they've got to do to be competitive and be in the role we were in previously, which is as a counselor, an advisor, and again, as an honest broker when opportunities exist. Under that role, we have been doing a lot of the things that I just described: project management, government affairs at the state capitol when necessary, marketing nationally to make sure that as site selectors are aware of the assets that you have. Business intelligence, one thing that people don't quite think about that much is when a request for proposals comes in that is interested in sites in the metro area, it's incumbent upon every parish leader of economic development to respond extremely quickly. Oftentimes we'll get a notice from a site selector or a notice from the state that they want to see a turnaround in as many as 48 hours or 7 days, and they want a detailed analysis of the infrastructure, the workforce, the sites that are available, and that work is something we've been very active in. The business intelligence that it takes to back up that proposal, to put together the analysis on why it's competitive and make a compelling proposal is a division of our organization we've been keenly focused on building up over the last 5 years. And finally, business retention and expansion. The services we do to visit companies, it's a structured program that we do where we interview companies over the course of a couple of hours to ask key questions, and then we track that data over time and try to respond to issues that arise from those visits. Some of the things that I think you'll be thinking about during your strategic planning are your assets. As you're thinking about what you want to try to develop and what's going to be your most competitive story and assets to build around. Your education system, above all else, I think your number 2 ranking in the state is something that you should absolutely consider your best and one of your leading assets. That as you're marketing your story, you are competitive nationally for education in a way that few other places, not only in the region, but few other places in Louisiana can talk about. And that story is of utmost interest to every company you will talk to and we talk to, first and foremost. Second, obviously your tourism base has been an aggressive base. I would say that continues to be an important asset for you to continue to consider. Obviously the nuclear plant at River Bend has been an important asset for you, and over the course of time to stay in front of them and ask them what can be done. Obviously after Japan, a lot of the nuclear promise that might have been opportunities, future opportunities in the U.S., is somewhat in question. We still think there are opportunities for potential future nuclear, but that is all dependent, I think, less on the safety concerns that arise after Japan, more from the cheap price of natural gas, which actually makes it less competitive to be doing the significant investment it takes to build nuclear. And then finally, I'd say river access and the quality of life that you offer are important assets, your existing assets. New and emerging assets. Your oil reserves are very interesting. The interest in the Tuscaloosa Marine Shale, we've been spending quite a bit of time analyzing what that looks like, the possible impact that can have in the near term and in the long term, and what choices our leadership at the parish level and at a regional level and a state level might need to make to be able to best capitalize on that. And we want to, as BRAC, be ready because it crosses 4 or 5 parishes in the metro area, but it is directly in the heart of your interests. So obviously that's something that you will be paying more and more attention to. Ecotourism, as opportunities arise, we think that those really do become significant opportunities for attracting in new tourists more and more that have not necessarily always thought about Louisiana or about West Feliciana. You have some of the most beautiful and pristine places for folks that want to go have that experience, and it is within such a short drive time from the entire metro area to come and have this playground and make that something where folks will spend dollars. That is a very interesting opportunity to pursue. The 4-laning of 61 being complete, tremendous. The bridge being complete, tremendous opportunities that those put on the table to pursue. And then the hope for a port and the direction that y'all are on for a port creates opportunities that have not been perhaps available to you before. And then, again, some suggestions you might want to think about as you're doing your work, and I'm happy to send these on or talk further on them. First is, as I said, the search process and how you want to go about the search process for a permanent staff person. I think given what you've talked about earlier about the timing for the election for economic development funding that will happen in 2012, I think it's very important to put a permanent person in place as soon as possible, and to have that person have the opportunity to tell the story of the strategic plan that you help write, and to build some momentum behind it so that it has some wind behind its sails, hopefully by the time that the tax election is held, a year probably after you get somebody in place. Second is to begin thinking more deeply and aggressively about how you want to create an economic development strategic plan. What sectors you think are most important to grow from a wood standpoint, as you talked about some of the experiences that y'all have had. A couple of you on this board are very keenly interested and knowledgeable in that sector. It obviously is a keen one for what you sit in the middle of in terms of logging assets, but also just generally the mix of things that are offered to you by having river access and wood in the same place. So those are important to think about those sectors, but also if you choose to go after entrepreneurial growth as one of your strategies. In many rural areas across America, many suburban areas across America, it is seen as a great opportunity of how you nurture entrepreneurial companies, homegrown companies from within your walls, within your boundaries, to grow those as export-driven firms and what it takes to nurture those assets. Those types of things have to be spelled out in a strategic plan. And the charge of managing somebody and holding somebody accountable to implement those things, I think, is critical. But as part and parcel of the search process, I think you've got to think about governance. Do they answer to the police jury? Do they answer to an independent entity like the foundation? And why would you choose one over the other? We see both work well. But you've got to choose what value you place on that governance and why you want to place it that way in making that choice. And that's a choice that I think you are charged with making about how to structure those things. And it ties in directly into your search process because the person that you hire, whether it's for a short-term role or a long-term role, is going to be asking those questions. To be thinking about the assets that you have as well as those goals. So the assets that are reviewed, how they play into the sectors you're going after, and to understand what those assets mean to the strategies you're going to take and undertake into your economic development strategy. And then finally, set a very defined period for when you want to finish writing your plan. If you choose to go down the path of writing a strategic plan, don't leave it open-ended. We've seen too many processes for planning be open-ended and that they don't necessarily feel pressure to conclude their work and move to the next step. I would say early on, define when you want to conclude it, and then outline the process you want to follow to go through it. And with that, perhaps I'll stop if you have questions. If not, I hope that's been illustrative and helpful to you in your thinking about the tasks that is put on you. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this.
I have a few questions for you.
Okay.
If you would, what sort of obligations do we currently have here as a parish to BREC?
You have no obligations. We are under, correct me if I'm wrong, month-to-month agreements. And so at any month it can be concluded.
Yeah. It is a month-to-month obligation right now with BRAC. That was an issue because the committee did not come back with the recommendation as early as we expected them to. Then we moved into extending the contract for initial 6 months, and after that entering to a month-to-month with anticipation that there may be some firm decision. This committee may have been seated earlier, and we would have, gone forward with maybe electing someone. So that's a decision that the jury made to move forward with BRAC to continue in that manner.
If I could add one more, our initial thought when we were asked to look at this and consider this as an option for an interim thing in June of 2010 was that this would be no more than 6 months. So we have devoted resources to it that weren't expected to be devoted to it this long. It has been important that we continue to do it, and as I said, something that we did happily because it's important that we see that no parish has any lag in its capability to compete, but we do think it's right ultimately to make it something that is permanent more as a parish level role. Does that answer your question?
It's a written document, or is it just verbal?
It's a contract. It's a written contract.
I know
It's similar to how we do. Just so y'all know, we are outsourced economic development for the parish of East Baton Rouge as well, and we view these as professional services agreements. We outline the activities to be performed under the contract and our reporting that we will do to make sure that we're accountable to a set of objectives, and they were outlined in the things that I described as project management, government affairs, the activity of business intelligence, marketing, business retention and expansion work. Those were the key objectives that we sought to make sure that did not get dropped.
Okay. One more question.
You bet.
If the board decides that we would like to entertain the possibility of hiring a director, is that something that you would be interested in, assisting us with that?
Absolutely. We've talked to this outline. I should have mentioned that in my comments. We were happy to, if you wanted us to, and again, not something I would say is necessary. If you wanted to, you can do it yourselves. If you wanted us to be the entity that would do the advertising, help you do the selections, help you write a criteria of what you're looking for, and then sort of screen people against that criteria, we'd be happy to help with that as, again, an extension of kind of the services that we've been committed to. Again, our interest is to see you successfully stand up a role of economic development, and whatever you need us to do to help make that happen.
Thank you. Great.
Norm?
I have a few. Also, as our sales and marketing agency for a while, do you have a database of assets of the parish, things that you've created that you give, and can we have access to that rather than reinventing the wheel?
We just did the redesign of our parish profile.
I'm sorry?
You want to stand to the mic?
Yeah, sure.
Rachel Pearson.
We just did Rachel Pearson, Baton Rouge Area Chamber, also interim director here in West Feliciana. We just did a complete redesign of all of our parish profiles. So we are doing edits right now and could probably have that to you all by Friday.
Is this an in-depth profile or just several?
No, this is a basic
sheets?
sales piece that we put in for initial RFP requests.
Mm-hmm.
We can get that information, we have it, so we can put together something more in-depth and a professional outline.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and have you submitted written reports to the police jury?
No, our reports have been done verbally due to confidentiality nature of the projects that we work with. We can change that with this group, however you want to do reporting in the future. You know, we're open to any suggestions.
Yeah, we do written in East Baton Rouge. Okay. We find it.
Rachel, I have a.
Sure.
I'm full of questions. I'm sorry. I'm the devil's advocate. In general terms, since you've been doing this for the parish, what types of interests have you found specific to West Feliciana Parish? I'm not asking for company names, but what types of companies or so have expressed an interest?
Industrial companies that have an interest in the wood.
What? I'm sorry?
In wood product here.
Wood products, okay. Is that basically what you found?
Actually, we have a copy of a couple of projects with the overview.
Again, I'm not looking for confidential things.
No, but it does. It has an overview of each
project.
project that we have in the pipeline.
Uh-huh.
That document was one that was given to the last police year meeting to discuss the types of companies that are interested in West Feliciana Parish. I also think it has value, potential value that the company would bring to the parish. So there's been a lot of work with BRAC with these potential entities that could locate here with a code name for the project, not specifying the name of the company. Now let me just say this, because I think that there's been this, I guess, statement of secrecy, and I'm not saying you're saying that, Norm, but it happened before where there's been a lot of codes and not any names of companies that's been presented. What's the name of the company? Well, you know, by being in economic development, that a company at times does not want their name mentioned out in public for various reasons. So therefore, there is a code that's given to that particular project, and there is a questionnaire asked about what assets that you have that would attract that company, then it moves from there. And I think that we need to understand that the name of a code is not trying to prevent information from getting out. It's more of the company saying that we don't want you to give it out.
And they don't want to know who else, you know,
Right.
what their competitors.
We can always, we know our strengths and our assets, but what have you found during this period of time that you've been working for us as a weakness that the parish has that,
The biggest,
yeah,
I don't like the pudding, but the biggest weakness is actually your zoning. We have got to say, this is industrial, this is commercial. I have 3 projects that are ready to see that happen in this community and have been waiting on that. So that, right now, that's the biggest thing holding you back from companies moving in. So, that's, and I mean, I hope that we're gonna move forward with that. I keep hearing that it's kind of coming along, but, you know, if we can get that done in 30 days would be good.
I have one question for you.
Sure.
You had mentioned that, and you described the businesses when they come here as industrial.
Mhm.
What about small business? How do you define small business, and what interest has there been in small business coming to it?
We're working 2 retail projects. I wouldn't say that was really small, kind of, but would bring good tax base to the parish. But we do work a lot of the industrial end projects, and a lot of that has to do on geography of where you're located, 61, KPAC being here. They've got water and sewer available. I know if we could do an extension, it would be a good thing, but.
Just to add that, the state has defined a small business in one way as there's a definition in the statute called Louisiana Entrepreneurial Business, which is a business with 50 or fewer employees.
Mm-hmm.
The Small Business Administration at the federal level, which I think is crazy, they define small business as 500 employees or less.
Wow.
And so if you take the SBA definition, every prospect on this list is a small business. If you use the state's definition, 7 of them would be small businesses. So 67.
Have any other questions?
Do we want you to have? Sure. No one needed to.
Kim was asking if y'all have any questions about the process of economic development and some of the work that Rachel does, and how, let's say if a site selector, many of these projects will be represented by a site selector, how the process unfolds. Is that something you'd be curious to understand, or is that more than you want to know?
And I would be happy to leave cards. I'd like to be in contact with all of you. I think we're going to be working together and trying to find a long-term solution to economic development here in the parish. Like Adam said, that.
I was going to say, describe for a moment just from RFP to site selection.
And we have had a site visit here. But basically an RFP comes in, they say, here's what we're looking for, these are the assets we need, rail, water, whatever it is. We nail down that criteria, we submit it. Sometimes it takes them 90 days to review it and come back, because they're reviewing, you don't know if they're reviewing 10 sites, you don't know if they're reviewing other states. They generally come back and ask us more questions, more in depth with the business intelligence side. What's your workforce like? What's your school system like? What would it be like if our employees move there? So, it all depends on the project and how far we get in the process. But we did have a site visit here. It was successful, and again, their question is always, we need it zoned. We need the area zoned. We need to know that if we purchase the land, we don't have to come before a jury to say, can we locate our business here now, And you can define that criteria, industrial, and you can do a heavy industrial, but there needs to be some sort of regulation there. Sir.
And Ms. Rachel, what I think we'd all like to see is an open communication between your office and this board here. And,
absolutely.
I would imagine everyone here would love to hear what you're working on.
Okay.
And I feel as though if we need to go into executive session for that, for confidentiality,
it would have to be,
we could probably do that. But we want to have a very open line of communication with you in your office.
Absolutely. Well, I welcome it. I'm excited. This group's in place. I think it shows that we're moving forward. So,
tell them when you're in the office.
Tuesdays, Thursdays, I'm in the office. So
In the
anytime,
police
yes, the police jury office. So that may change depending on my recruitment schedule, but it shouldn't be happening anytime soon. So Tuesday, Thursday, be happy to meet with any of you.
And on the search process, if you want to sort of have us put together kind of a path of what that looks like, we could send you back a proposal of sort of the timeline of what it takes to advertise, do review, post, and again, as I said in my remarks, I think setting a fixed timeline for what you want to do helps sort of make sure that everybody is trying to hit goals that are sort of predefined, and that's something we could help put together for you if you'd be interested.
Certainly. I think it's going to take a little time for us all to get our feet underneath us. And
Sure.
Absolutely. But Adam had some really good ideas, so I think that he'll be very helpful as well.
Great.
In finding someone.
We do quite a bit of recruitment, not only for ourselves but with others. It's something that we, as I said, about our talent program, it's something we're even building in as a practice within BRAC to help firms be able to do. So we're happy to help.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank you for what you have done, for picking up the ball and filling the gap between the CDF and what we've done here, and we really appreciate that.
And I guess if there's a bottom line, we're here for you if you need us, and we're eager to see y'all create the permanence of leadership that it takes to succeed in a permanent way. Thank you.
And if y'all just had any curiosity on the area that I tend to market when we get these, manufacturing companies, or there's a lot of biofuels companies right now looking around, it's all that area around KPAC. So I can actually send you each a link to, what we send out and say, we have a lot of work done up on the property for wetlands and all that. So, that's the area we continue to show. I encourage all the real estate agents I've been in touch with, a few in the parish, to, send me site information, even for retail, so we've been busy, but it's been good. But I'm so happy to see you all here, and I think this will be a good group, and just need to work towards the common goal of having a permanent solution.
We certainly look forward to working.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll leave my card right here.
May I just add one thing? I know we're going to the adjournment. Can I just, Mr. Chairman, one statement?
Yes.
Just a couple of things. First of all, again, I want to thank Adam and thank Rachel for what they've done. I mean, BRAC just really jumped up to the plate, and we were in pretty dire situations. We actually had some projects that were looking very closely at West Feliciana, and we had no one to really move them forward. I was getting calls from people doing the project, said, "What are y'all doing?" So they graciously jumped up to the plate and really filled in, just did a wonderful job of helping us move through the process. So they're tirelessly working. They bring an incredible amount of resources to the table. This group needs to take advantage of what Adam has offered, okay? They have a vast amount of research. Another thing, they're very connected to LED, and I think that is so important. So as you go through the process, you understand the connectivity and connecting the dots between what they do from a regional standpoint and what they do from a state standpoint. Now, speaking a little bit about the regional aspect, I think that what we have to understand is that West Feliciana by itself, just in its own resources, may not be able to attract a large entity that we'd be interested in. But if we approach it from a regional standpoint, we have a better opportunity of doing so. There is a lot of move toward regional economic developments. We are participating now with the SET group, Stronger Economies Together, which was a grant that was put together by Sky Bird of Point Capee, and Lori sits on that group, and it's a wonderful opportunity to see how do we develop the region in which everyone benefits.
And maybe a few of you, if any of you are interested in participating, just coming out and seeing how we're putting that together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're about to take, what we're doing in that meeting is going through this strategic process and seeing what's good for we call it the North Capital Region Alliance.
Right.
But, it would kind of give you and show you, here's how we work through these things and come up with answers. So I would invite or encourage a few or all of you to participate in the next meeting.
Absolutely. I think it's a great opportunity to look at it and to understand the synergies that we're pushing to look at regional economic development, which includes Point Capee, West Feliciana, East Feliciana, and Zachary. So if you look at just the combination of that group, what it creates. I mean, you know, Zachary could be more about metropolitan area, so to speak. And then you have the rural aspects of East and West Feliciana and Ponkey developing. You know, it really puts us in a very good situation to be able to really attract something that would benefit the region and in turn benefit us. Also, I was just on a conference call yesterday that would extend that a bit. A grant that would go as low as 400,000, as much as 5 million. And there would be more meetings, and that's putting together, again, regional economic development. How do we take it further? And not just planning the strategies, but implementation, those kind of things in the region. So Skip Smart from LED initiated the call because he saw what we were doing from a regional strategic planning standpoint and thought that we were good candidates to move forward in another initiative. So that has been discussed. One other thing is that we have to, again, having the big discussions. It was said, I think, by Mr. Knapp, the importance of a high-quality school system and what that does for economic development for our parish. We all know the struggles we're having with the school system. We all know the issues financially, what they're going through. This group is going to have to look at possibly some redistribution or reallocation of tax dollars to be able to do some things that's needed. I think that needs to be a discussion. I'm not saying support one way or another. Not taking one tax dollar that somebody has done from another, but to say that if one entity is an important component to success, we may need to do something on an interim basis to make sure they're still successful. Then after a particular time, we move back to what we did before. But what I'm saying that we have to start to look at this overall view. If that's what we're saying as attracted people to West Feliciana Parish, then we need to make sure we protect that. And we need to make sure that there's a little weakness there. We all come around to strengthen it so they can be strong and move forward. One thing else I want to say, and I'm going to sit down. I don't know how many people know that recently a company just left West Feliciana Parish. This company was a high-tech company. This company was just awarded a significant grant by the government, one that could have grown a significant business right here as an organic grassroots company. Now, many of us knew they were going through the struggle. Now, many of us knew that they had issues that they could not resolve. Now, many of us knew that they were at a point that they now have moved. I'm saying we can't afford to let that happen. Sometimes we're so busy looking at the minutia and arguing over points that do not drill down to things of significance that we lose a potential upstart company that could have had a manufacturing entity here in West Feliciana Parish that started here in West Feliciana Parish. They have now moved on. I'm saying is that we got to get rid of all the items that do not drill down to the importance of what we're trying to accomplish. And with that, I want to thank you for the time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the extra time.
Thank you. Ms. Pearson, what are the dates that that regional group is?
Well, and I hate to say it, but the SCT group is it's kind of coming up to a closing because we've been working on this for a year now. Yeah. But I think it's going to be in September. So will be our next meeting, and we skipped a meeting because we were so far ahead of all the other groups. We've got a very talented group that brings a lot of economic development experience. So, you know, over the rural communities, we're kind of the leader in that. Very lucky. Very fortunate.
We're definitely leader. And it's because we've always had conversation on what were the possibilities, what could be the possibilities. We talked to Ponkey about the possibilities, East Feliciana, Zachary, what are the possibilities of us doing something regionally? And because of those conversations prior to it, we were able to get through the process very quickly. So really we're kind of waiting on the other areas to come together. And the next meeting is going to be a combination of all the different regions coming together. I think, am I right, Rachel, right? Mm-hmm. All the regions coming together for the final section of this set program. Okay.
But it might be nice for you to stop by. So
yeah,
I can send an email.
We'll let you know. It'd be good to stop by and look at it.
Especially now if you're chairman. We'd love to have you there.
Thank you. All right, that's That's everything we had on the agenda. Do any of the other board members have any questions or any issues or thoughts or anything that they'd like to? Okay, we're gonna meet next Thursday on the 14th at 5 o'clock. If there's nothing else, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved.